Welcome to another edition of Survival Mode, where we give entrepreneurs a step-by-step roadmap to starting their own business. I'm Bert Robinson.
I'm Kevin Beers.
I'm Michael Grant Jr.
You can reach us by email at hello@survivalmode.live or check out our website at www.survivalmode.live. Let's get to it. Welcome back to another edition of Survival Mode. It is time for us to talk about, we got to be organized. Because we're organizing to manage, maintain, and measure progress. This is really, I did it again. It's really important. Okay. We're going to have to come up with something else other than really important. You need to do this. You need to do this. You know, the management and maintenance of the organizational structure will guarantee business credit development. Now, I'm going to say this again. Management and maintenance of organizational structure will guarantee business credit development. Now, Michael, I want you to go over that a little bit, and because you do this all the time. That is so, that's so key. Okay, that is so key.
you can stick with important because everything is important. Okay. Yeah, so a lot of people don't realize when you establish your organizational structure, and as you are establishing and developing your organizational structure, yes, every account, every registration is super important, and it builds your credibility. So when you get incorporated, now you are a true separate entity from yourself. And that also means that you need to establish the proper components to reflect that. So that's why you establish a business address. That's why you establish a business line. That's why you establish a business email, business website, etc. And then you go through the process of the other accounts and registrations like Google Profile, the Google Business Profile, creditors and businesses and authorities and customers are going to look on Google. And normally we don't like to talk about the names of businesses or names of entities, but we have to because this is one of the necessary ones. This is almost like a requirement, and I say that because that is a form of entity verification. Okay, so when you look at from a personal and consumer standpoint, when it's time for you to actually apply for a loan, when it's time for you to get anything in your personal name, what do? They ask you for your driver's license or your ID. Well, it's the same thing for a business. When you incorporate, they're going to ask you for your articles. They're going to ask you for your EIN. They're going to ask you where you're located, and they're going to look you up. And these registrations adds to your credibility because now and Bert, you mentioned this, it helps to verify that you are a legitimate business and you're structured as such. And upon doing that,
I'm going to interrupt you because you said something that we don't mention often. When you said they're going to ask for your articles, okay, we got to let everybody know articles of corporation. Yes. That's what they're going to be asking for, okay? And we might talk about that more in the deep dive a little bit later. Now, good Kevin, point. This is one thing when you're working with software, you know, as a former engineer. Okay, all right. Okay, not a former engineer. You still do that stuff. Okay, on the side. All right. How important with all of the software that we work with, one in financial services, one in working with entrepreneurs, how important is it to, once you get it, and you got to start testing it? Why is that important, Kevin?
Oh, my goodness. I think that one had the obvious answer to it. If you don't test it, you won't know how it works. So, but the thing is, will it work for you? Will it work for your business? That's the big question. I tried out a couple different software packages for accounting. Excuse me. We talked about that a little bit in the last episode. The accounting software, you get a free trial. Well, the thing is, check with your accountant who will be doing your taxes. What are his requirements? And will that software package you're trying out, don't try out a package that doesn't talk with his package. So you need to find software that's compatible with him or her, whoever your accountant is. You don't want to use a package. You get all your numbers together, and then he says, well, I can't use that. You have to give it to me on paper.
Oh, you don't want that.
One, it's going to cost you a lot of extra money because he's going to charge to go through all that. Two, you want it to just seamlessly, like you just send the file off. He receives the numbers, puts it right into his program. Everything's good and ready to go. That's what you want. Now, what is it on your end that works for you and isn't compatible with your accountant? So you got, there's those facets you want to look at. Now, do you have office software that, let's say you're going to have 4 people working in the office itself? Well, what piece of software helps them coordinate the jobs they're doing? So that maybe one's got to work on a job and pass it off to somebody else. Is there a software that seamlessly allows all that to happen? And you can just look at a dashboard or something and says, okay, this is where everything is. Whatever your business requires, that's what you're looking for. And then try it out. Again, try it out, test it, make sure it does what you expect it to do. If someone else is relying on it, get them to look at it, or at least make recommendations, if nothing else. Like your accountant can make recommendations. That's an easy way to go on that one. But it's just something you should be looking for to make everything easier.
One of the things that I want to get into with this is, Michael, I want you to go into this one.
Okay.
When we manage and maintain our business, maintaining our information is really important. Now, most people suggest using the cloud for the business model and the research and development for your storage, because you don't want to lose that data.
Right.
Okay. And if you don't, you're still adding to that as we go through all the steps. Am I right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let me interject real quick. If you would like to reach us, learn more information about us, and contact us, go to our website at www.survivalmode.live and or email us at hello@survivalmode.live. Okay, now let's get back to the program. All right, so yes, you have to make sure all this stuff is, I just got to reiterate it. I got to say it like how you say, all this stuff is so important. And I wanted to add to what Kevin was saying before I jump on that up, Bert. Try the free trials as soon as possible, understanding compatibility and integration. And it has to make sense for your business and your industry. Now, the other part to that is, do not let price determine if you get a platform, a software, app, or whatever the case may be. Let the usefulness determine it, and you simply plan and prepare properly if it's going to cost. Okay, it's going to make your job easier as the owner, the overseer, the entrepreneur, because it's going to help you to manage, maintain, and measure your progress. So a lot of people say, oh, that's too expensive, but it's not too expensive when it's relative to how much money you're going to be making. So you got to keep that stuff in mind when you're thinking about your softwares, your apps, your platforms. So that's why free trials are super important in the beginning, because you got to see the value.
Okay, I want to jump and add on to that too. If you start with a very cheap piece of software because you wanted to save money and find as your business grows it's not adequate, you're going to have to use the more expensive software anyway. Just start there if that's what works best. Don't do something cheaply because it's going to cost you a ton to convert all that data over.
Right. And now my turn. If you plan and prepare for getting the software that you actually need, then you're going to position yourself to pay for that software lickety split. Okay, that's
gotcha.
I mean, am I right, guys?
100%. I want to add to that even more.
Okay.
This is why we're telling people to go through the process. You don't start your business, you don't start the planning, and then you open up your business tomorrow. No, you give yourself time. So if anything is going to cost a certain amount of money, you plan for it. That's why it's super important to do your organizational structure. Your organizational structure will identify everything that you will need and how much it's going to cost before you actually jump into the operational structure. Okay, and I think we might need to go into deep dive more about this because this is super important.
Okay, but I know a lot of people are going to say, well, that software is like $500. Okay, your business is going to pay for it. Ah, what do you mean my business is going to pay for it?
And you get the write-off.
There you go. So there's steps in there that you have to do.
Yes.
To put yourself in that position where it's not a concern.
Right.
But you got to go through the steps.
So absolutely. And so now I want to jump back on what you said, Bert, in regards to the cloud and saving information, storing information. Now, this is critical. You are held responsible for the information that you gather and consume and receive from the general public and your customers or your clients. So it is extremely important. Everything's important. This is extremely important because we have seen corporations be fined. Certain executives so because they didn't store the information properly. So when it comes to hacking, and Kevin, you remember you had a news you can use in regards to cybersecurity for small businesses. It's so important. Everything is so important, bro. You're right. And this is why, guess what? This is why we're here. If everything wasn't important, we wouldn't have and created survival mode. So there you have it.
Okay, I got one thing to add to that. When you use the cloud, you don't have to worry as much about cybersecurity on your own equipment because everything's going out to the cloud. The cloud provider is going to give you a lot of security protocols to work with. Now, don't worry about the big words. They just make it easy because they have your data. They're in charge of protecting it. They also back it up every single night. Your data is going to get backed up. Actually, make sure that's a requirement when you look for it. There's so much more we can get into. We're going to do that on the deep dive. So go over to the website and you can pick up a lot more information. And we will see you next week.
You've been listening to Survival Mode, where we give entrepreneurs a step-by-step roadmap to starting their own business. You can reach us by email at hello@survivalmode.live or check out our website at www.survivalmode.live, where you'll find help to start your own business and personal financial guidance. You'll also find a library of our previous shows. We'll see you the same time next week.